What if getting someone to agree with you wasn't this long, drawn-out affair?
Hmm.
Imagine being able to connect and, persuade effectively and quickly. That's what we're diving into today on the deep dive.
Exactly. We're taking a focused look at the core ideas behind the science of influence, giving you, our listener, a practical understanding of how to become more persuasive in those crucial early moments
Yeah.
and beyond.
Right.
Think of this as extracting the essential knowledge you need
Right.
without having to wade through volumes of research.
You got it.
Hmm.
As the learner, you're always looking for ways to gain knowledge efficiently and put it to use right away. So, we've distilled some really compelling concepts about influence into 7 key areas.
Yeah.
Consider this your rapid access guide to getting more yes answers we'll be exploring, mastering the magnetic 7 seconds, those critical first impressions.
Uh-huh.
Then, how to unlock the yes by building strong rapport. Next, becoming the believable 7, establishing your credibility. We'll also look at how to frame it, right, in 7 ways to craft persuasive messages. Then, the Irresistible 7 laws as the psychological drivers of agreement.
Mm-hmm.
After that, we'll tackle how to overcome the no with Omega's 7 secrets to reduce resistance. And finally, knowing their mind in 7 steps, truly understanding needs for ultimate persuasion.
Our goal is, well, to provide you with actionable insights and real-world examples in each of these areas. By the end of this deep dive, you should have a much clearer and more nuanced understanding of how to influence others effectively, both professionally and, personally.
All right, let's jump straight into our first area, mastering the magnetic 7 seconds. The fundamental idea here is that those very first few moments, they carry an incredible amount of weight.
Oh, absolutely.
You've got this tiny window to create a positive initial impact. It's almost unbelievable how quickly people form opinions.
It really is.
Yeah.
Within those first few seconds, subconscious judgments are being made that can significantly color the entire interaction.
Hmm.
For you, as someone who values efficiency, focusing on these initial moments gives a real advantage.
Right.
You're far more likely to get a positive reception right off the bat.
Yeah.
That positive start acts like a tailwind, making others much more open to what you have to say.
Uh-huh.
And, in a world where everyone's competing for attention, making a magnetic first impression, well, that can be the key to standing out
Yeah.
and being remembered.
Absolutely. We all know that feeling, don't we? Immediately clicking with someone or being instantly impressed by a brand. That's often down to those first few seconds. Now, let's consider the flip side. What are the potential pitfalls if you don't nail those crucial initial moments?
Well, if that initial connection doesn't happen, you risk triggering an immediate negative judgment. And those can be surprisingly sticky, really hard to shake off. Even a brilliant message can fall flat if the person you're talking to is, already formed a negative impression. Ultimately, you could miss out on valuable opportunities. A potential client might not give you a second look.
Right.
A promising partnership could dissolve before it even starts. Or your innovative idea in a meeting might just get overlooked.
Okay.
Simply because you didn't grab their attention early on. A weak start really puts you on the back foot.
So what are some examples of companies that seem to really understand the power of these first few seconds?
Think about walking into an Apple store. The minimalist design, the clean layout, the approachable and knowledgeable staff, it all immediately communicates quality,
Yeah.
expertise.
Yeah, that clean look.
That polished appearance and confident demeanor make a strong first impression. Then you have the Ritz-Carlton. Their emphasis on impeccable grooming, anticipating guest needs the moment they arrive.
Yeah.
It speaks volumes about their commitment to service, detail, creates an immediate sense of being cared for. And consider a company like Zappos. Even over the phone or chat, they prioritize friendly, efficient, helpful service right from that first interaction. That positive tone, the feeling they're there to assist you, it makes a significant difference.
Right. Those are all examples of companies really prioritizing that initial interaction.
Yeah.
So where does some businesses, stumble when it comes to first impressions?
Unfortunately, we see it quite often. Think about disorganized or cluttered retail spaces.
Oh, yeah.
Walking into chaos immediately signals a lack of attention to detail. Creates a negative feeling, the opposite of that Apple Store experience, right?
Exactly.
Then there's unresponsive or unfriendly initial customer service. When a company doesn't make that early connection positive, they miss a huge opportunity to build goodwill.
Huge.
And think about presentations you've maybe sat through.
Yeah.
Starting with a dry, generic intro that just fails to capture attention. That's a missed chance to make a magnetic first impression.
Okay, so for our listener, the learner, who wants to master those magnetic 7 seconds in their own business dealings, what are some practical steps they can take?
The key here is to be incredibly intentional about every single point of first contact, in person, phone, online. Ensure your own professional appearance is sharp, your demeanor welcoming, approachable. If you lead a team, invest in training. Make sure everyone understands the importance of those initial moments and how to make a positive impact.
Good point.
And for presentations or important meetings, dedicate time to crafting a compelling opening statement, something that grabs attention immediately and clearly communicates the value you bring. It's about being consciously aware of the message you're sending in those crucial first few seconds.
That's really actionable advice. All right, let's move on to our second key area. Unlock the yes, 7 keys to building unbreakable rapport. What's the fundamental principle here?
At its core, rapport is about establishing a sense of connection, mutual understandings, that feeling of being in sync, and it acts as the bedrock for influence.
Bedrock, yeah.
When rapport is strong, communication becomes easier, trust deepens, and people become far more receptive to your ideas.
And what are the specific benefits for, our listener when they actively focus on building strong rapport?
Well, when you have rapport, people naturally become more open to your suggestions, your perspectives. Communication just flows much more smoothly because there's a shared understanding, a feeling of comfort.
Makes sense.
Ultimately, cultivating genuine rapport leads to stronger, more productive, and more lasting professional relationships. It lays the foundation for effective collaboration and influence.
That sounds incredibly valuable. Now, what are the potential downsides if you, neglect building rapport?
Without rapport, you're likely to encounter more resistance, skepticism, even if your ideas are sound. It becomes significantly harder to truly understand the other person's needs, their motivations, concerns. Interactions can remain superficial, transactional, lacking the depth needed for real influence. You might find yourself constantly having to overcome unnecessary barriers.
So let's look at some U.S. companies that seem to excel at building this crucial rapport with their customers.
Consider Starbucks again. Many baristas are trained to engage personally, remember names, usual orders, create a friendly atmosphere. This small act of personalization goes a long way.
It really does.
Then there's a company like Salesforce. Their sales process often emphasizes understanding the client's specific business challenges, tailoring solutions to those needs. That shows genuine interest in their success, fostering a stronger connection.
Right. Client-focused.
And think about Southwest Airlines. Their customer service often uses humor, a more relaxed conversational tone. That can help passengers feel more at ease, more connected to the brand. It's about using their voice, their personality, to bridge that gap.
Those are great examples of companies making an effort to connect. What are some common mistakes that can hinder rapport building?
One frequent misstep is relying too heavily on automated or impersonal customer service. It can feel cold, fail to create any real human connection, or show genuine care.
Totally. The robot voice.
Exactly. Another is when sales teams are overly focused on pushing a product without taking time to understand the customer's actual needs and build a relationship.
Transactional, not relational.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And inconsistent communication styles can also be a barrier. If your style clashes significantly with the other person's natural way of interacting, it creates discomfort, hinders that feeling of being in sync.
Okay, so for our listener, the learner who wants to unlock more yes answers by building stronger rapport, what are some actionable strategies they can implement?
The advice here is to actively practice empathetic listening. Really focus on understanding the other person's perspective. Show genuine curiosity in what they say.
Active listening, yeah.
Be mindful of adapting your communication style to match their pace, their tone. Actively seek out common ground, shared interests to build that connection. And above all else, strive to be authentic, sincere. Prioritize developing genuine human relationships over purely transactional exchanges.
All right, let's move on to our third critical area. Become the believable 7, elevating your credibility to command influence. What's the core essence of credibility in this context?
Simply put, credibility is the extent to which others perceive you as trustworthy and competent. It's about how believable you are seen to be. And it's absolutely foundational for effective influence.
Foundational, okay.
Without credibility, your attempts to persuade will likely fall flat, no matter how compelling your arguments might seem.
And what are the tangible benefits for our listener who actively works to establish strong credibility?
Well, when you're perceived as highly credible, your persuasive efforts become significantly more effective. Your recommendations, your strategic advice will carry much more weight. They're far more likely to be accepted, acted upon.
Right. Your word means something.
Exactly. Ultimately, building a solid reputation for competence, integrity, reliability. It leads to greater long-term success in all your endeavors.
Conversely, what are the potential negative consequences if you lack credibility?
If you lack credibility, your audience is likely to doubt your expertise, your motives, the validity of your claims.
Suspicion.
Yeah. Even well-reasoned arguments might be dismissed out of hand if you're not seen as a trustworthy source. Building influence over time becomes a steep uphill battle. You'll constantly face skepticism and resistance.
So let's talk about companies that have really mastered the art of becoming the believable seven in their fields.
Think about the Mayo Clinic. Their long, distinguished history, their world-renowned doctors, their extensive research, it all contributes to establishing them as a highly credible authority in healthcare. They consistently demonstrate expertise and experience.
Solid reputation.
Then consider a service like Consumer Reports. Their rigorous independent testing, their unbiased reviews, they've become a deeply trusted source for product info. They rely heavily on citing evidence, presenting objective findings.
Trustworthy, yeah.
And look at platforms like TED Talks. By featuring recognized experts who often share meticulously researched, evidence-based insights, they build significant credibility through competence and well-supported arguments.
What are some common missteps that can erode or prevent the building of credibility?
One frequent mistake is failing to adequately highlight your relevant qualifications, experience, or, data-driven results that demonstrate your expertise.
Not showing your homework.
Right. Another is making unsubstantiated claims or presenting info without proper evidence. That can quickly damage trust.
Definitely.
And finally, any form of inconsistent messaging or unprofessional behavior can significantly undermine even genuine efforts to build credibility. Your actions need to align with the image you're trying to project.
So for our listener, the learner who wants to boost their believability and command greater influence, what are some key strategies they can implement?
The advice is to strategically and honestly highlight your relevant education, professional experience, specific expertise, but always avoid exaggeration.
Stay grounded.
Ensure you consistently back up your claims with solid data, research findings, testimonials. Always maintain a high level of professionalism in communication, in behavior, and a surprisingly effective technique. Be willing to acknowledge potential limitations or drawbacks in your proposals. It shows objectivity and can actually enhance your perceived trustworthiness.
Interesting point. Shows you're balanced. Okay, let's move on to our fourth crucial area. Frame it right in 7 ways. Crafting messages that compel action. What's the underlying power of framing?
Framing, at its heart, is about how you present information. It's the art of selecting and highlighting certain aspects while downplaying others to influence how your message is perceived and acted upon.
The lens you use.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The same information can lead to very different reactions depending on how it's framed.
And what are the key advantages for our listener who learns to master the art of effective framing?
When you frame your message strategically, you can significantly increase the perceived value and attractiveness of your offers. Effective framing can also proactively address potential objections before they even arise. Make your proposals much more appealing.
Smoother sailing.
Definitely. Ultimately, it empowers you to guide the decision-making process more effectively by shaping how others interpret the information you provide.
What are the potential negative consequences if you neglect the power of framing or, do it poorly?
Poor framing can lead to missed opportunities because your message might simply fail to resonate or highlight what the audience cares about most.
It doesn't land right.
Exactly. It can also result in unnecessary objections and resistance that could have been avoided. And if your message is confusing, unclear, or focuses on the wrong aspects due to poor framing, your overall ability to influence will be significantly weakened.
Can you provide some compelling examples of U.S. companies that are particularly adept at framing their messages?
Absolutely. Think about how insurance companies often frame their offerings around the fear of loss, emphasizing the potential devastation of not being protected. That taps into our natural aversion to negative outcomes.
Loss aversion, yeah. Powerful.
Then consider subscription services highlighting limited-time offers or savings compared to individual purchases, effectively framing their value proposition very attractively. And look at political campaigns. They are masters of framing their candidates positively while framing opponents negatively. powerfully demonstrates the impact of perspective.
Those are really impactful examples. What are some common mistakes companies make when it comes to framing?
One prevalent mistake is focusing too heavily on product features without clearly framing how those features translate into tangible benefits for the customer.
Features versus benefits. Classic.
Right. Another is presenting an overwhelming number of options without effectively framing a clear, recommended path forward. Leads to indecision.
Analysis paralysis.
You got it. And a significant oversight is failing to leverage loss aversion, not highlighting what a client might lose by not choosing your offering. That diminishes persuasive impact.
So for our listener, the learner, who wants to frame their messages more effectively, what practical advice would you offer?
The core principle is to consistently emphasize the benefits and positive outcomes your audience will experience. Frame offers in terms of what they gain, problems they solve, or negative consequences they avoid.
Focus on them.
Exactly. Utilize strategic comparisons and contrasts to highlight your advantages. And always strive to keep your messaging clear, concise, and laser-focused on what's most relevant and valuable to that specific audience.
Let's move on to our fifth key area, the irresistible 7 laws. Decoding the science of saying yes. What exactly are these laws of influence?
These laws of influence, often linked to Robert Cialdini's work and others like Kevin Hogan, are fundamental principles of human psychology that consistently and predictably influence our decisions, particularly when it comes to persuasion.
The deep psychology.
Understanding and ethically applying these laws can significantly enhance your ability to gain agreement.
And what are the key benefits for the learner of understanding and being able to leverage these powerful laws?
Well, when you understand these underlying psychological drivers, your influence efforts become much more predictable, more reliable. They're grounded in consistent human tendencies.
Makes sense.
Many of these laws, when used ethically, can lead to outcomes that are mutually beneficial. And principles like reciprocity and liking can foster stronger, more collaborative professional relationships.
What are the potential downsides or missed opportunities if someone ignores these fundamental laws?
If you're unaware of or ignore these principles, you can miss significant opportunities to persuade effectively. You might also inadvertently trigger resistance or create unnecessary obstacles because you're not aligning with natural human inclinations.
Working against the grain.
Exactly. And neglecting principles like reciprocity can lead to more transactional, less fulfilling interactions.
Can you give us some concrete examples of U.S. companies that effectively apply these laws?
Absolutely. Think about Costco membership model, free samples. Classic application of the law of reciprocity. Giving a small gift up front increases likelihood of purchase or continued membership.
The power of the free sample.
Totally. Amazon's personalized recommendations based on past purchases. That illustrates the law of consistency. People tend to behave consistently with past actions. And the frequent use of countdown timers, limited stock notifications by online retailers. That taps into the law of scarcity, creating urgency, motivating quicker action.
What are some common mistakes competitors make by not understanding or utilizing these principles?
One common mistake is asking for a big commitment right away without offering any initial value. Failing to leverage reciprocity.
Got a gift to get.
Right. Another is not reinforcing past positive customer decisions, which weakens the pull of consistency and makes them more susceptible to competitors. And presenting unlimited availability doesn't take advantage of the motivational power of scarcity.
So for our listener who wants to make their influence more irresistible, how can they practically apply these laws day to day?
The key is to be conscious and deliberate. Look for genuine opportunities to give value up front, even something small, to trigger reciprocity. Encourage small initial commitments to foster consistency.
Baby steps.
Highlight genuine scarcity and urgency where it truly exists. Focus on building genuine connections, rapport, to leverage the law of liking. Express positive expectations. And don't underestimate social proof. Show people that others like them are embracing your ideas or benefiting from your offerings.
Let's move on to our sixth crucial area, overcome the no with omega-7 secrets. Reducing resistance for breakthrough compliance. What are these omega strategies all about?
Omega strategies are proactive, often subtle techniques designed to anticipate and minimize the natural resistance people might have to your requests or proposals.
Getting ahead of the no.
Exactly. They focus on making it easier for someone to say yes by addressing potential objections before they even fully surface.
And what are the significant benefits for our listener who learns to effectively employ these Omega strategies?
By strategically implementing them, you significantly increase the likelihood of your proposals being accepted. You'll also become much more adept at navigating objections when they do arise.
Smoother negotiations.
And perhaps most importantly, understanding and respecting potential resistance helps maintain and even strengthen long-term relationships, fosters a sense of being heard.
Conversely, what are the potential negative consequences if you neglect these strategies?
If you consistently overlook potential resistance, you're likely to hear no much more often, even if your offers are good. Negotiations can stall or become adversarial. You might miss valuable agreements.
Right. Creates friction.
Furthermore, failing to address resistance can damage rapport and strain those crucial professional relationships.
Can you provide some practical examples of how U.S. companies effectively utilize these Omega strategies?
Certainly. Think about customer service teams trained to actively acknowledge and validate a customer's past frustrations. Demonstrating empathy diffuses potential resistance right away.
Validate their feelings.
Another powerful strategy is presenting both sides of an argument or acknowledging potential downsides to your own proposals. This can increase trust by showing you've considered different perspectives.
Builds credibility too, right?
It does. And a compelling technique is focusing on the potential regret of inaction. Highlighting what someone might miss out on by not acting can overcome inertia and resistance.
What are some common mistakes that actually increase resistance?
A very common one is simply ignoring or dismissing objections without addressing the underlying concerns. Makes people feel unheard, strengthens their resistance. Another pitfall is only presenting the positives while downplaying risks, seems less credible, raises suspicion. And finally, failing to acknowledge past negative experiences allows that resistance to persist.
So for our listener who wants to overcome more no's, what are some actionable Omega strategies?
The key is being proactive and empathetic. Try to anticipate resistance, address it preemptively. Make a conscious effort to acknowledge and validate others' concerns, even if you disagree.
See their side.
Present a balanced perspective. Discuss potential drawbacks where appropriate. Focus on the potential negative consequences of inaction. And always foster open communication where people feel comfortable voicing objections.
All right, we've reached our final key area, know their mind in 7 steps. Understanding needs for ultimate persuasion. What's the fundamental principle driving this?
Ultimately, effective influence isn't just about compelling arguments or clever techniques. It's deeply rooted in understanding the other person. Their needs, values, goals, aspirations.
That comes back to them.
When you truly understand what motivates them, you can tailor your approach for maximum impact.
And what are the significant benefits for our listener who takes the time to genuinely understand their audience?
When you deeply understand what's important to someone, you can craft your message to directly resonate with their individual needs. Makes it far more likely to be well received.
Connects on their level.
This understanding significantly increases your chances of them saying yes, because you're addressing what truly matters to them. And, maybe most importantly, it fosters stronger, more meaningful, valuable, long-term relationships built on mutual understanding and respect.
Conversely, what are the potential downsides if you don't take the time to truly understand your audience?
Well, if you don't, your communication is likely to be generic, irrelevant, ultimately ineffective. Building rapport and trust becomes much harder because your attempts at connection might feel superficial or misdirected.
Missing the mark.
And you'll likely miss opportunities to offer truly valuable solutions because you're not aligned with what they actually require or desire.
Can you provide examples of U.S. companies that really demonstrate a strong understanding of their audience's needs?
Absolutely. Think Amazon again. Their recommendation engine analyzes vast data to understand individual preferences and suggest relevant products.
Data-driven understanding.
Then you have market research firms like Nielsen, Ipsos. Their whole business is about conducting research to understand consumer needs, informing strategies for their clients, and consider consulting firms. They invest significant time upfront to thoroughly understand client challenges, goals, culture before proposing solutions.
What are some common mistakes companies make when it comes to understanding their audience?
A frequent mistake is relying on broad generalizations or assumptions instead of doing thorough research and seeking feedback.
Assuming you know.
Right. Another is using generic one-size-fits-all marketing messages that fail to resonate with specific segments. And a significant pitfall is prioritizing internal goals over truly understanding and addressing customer needs.
So for our listeners striving for ultimate persuasion, what are some actionable steps to better understand their audience's minds?
The advice is to ask thoughtful, open-ended questions. Encourage clients and colleagues to articulate their values, needs, goals openly. Practice active listening, pay attention to words, nonverbal cues, underlying emotions.
Listen deeply.
Clearly connect how your proposal addresses their specific requirements. Frame proposals in terms of the positive outcomes they will experience. And above all, cultivate genuine curiosity. Show sincere interest in their perspectives, challenges, what truly matters most to them.
Well, that brings us to the conclusion of our in-depth exploration into the fascinating science of rapid influence. We've covered a significant amount of ground today.
We really have.
From the critical importance of those initial 7 seconds to the nuanced art of understanding someone's deepest motivations.
We sincerely hope that you, our listener, the learner, have found these insights valuable, immediately applicable. By consciously integrating these principles, mastering first impressions, building rapport, establishing credibility, framing messages, understanding influence laws, reducing resistance, and truly knowing your audience's mind,
Ooh.
you can become significantly more confident, effective, and ethical in your influence efforts, ultimately empowering you to achieve your strategic goals professionally and personally.
And as you navigate your next important interaction, I encourage you to reflect. Which of these 7 key areas resonates most right now? Which one might you consciously focus on implementing first?
Mm.
Observe the impact. Remember, developing your ability to understand and influence is a continuous journey. Learning, refining, deepening your understanding of human motivations.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the science of rapid influence. We trust you've gained some valuable insights you can put into practice immediately.
And we look forward to having you join us next time for another insightful exploration right here on the Deep Dive. What if getting someone to agree with you wasn't this long, drawn-out affair? Imagine being able to connect and, persuade effectively and quickly. That's what we're diving into today on the Deep Dive.
Exactly. We're taking a focused look at the core ideas behind the science of influence, giving you, our listener, a practical understanding of how to become more persuasive in those crucial early moments and beyond.
Right.
Think of this as extracting the essential knowledge you need
Right.
without having to wade through volumes of research.
You got it.
Hmm.
As the learner, you're always looking for ways to gain knowledge efficiently and put it to use right away. So we've distilled some really compelling concepts about influence into 7 key areas.
Yeah.
Consider this your rapid access guide to getting more yes answers we'll be exploring. Mastering the magnetic 7 seconds, those critical first impressions. Then how to unlock the yes by building strong rapport. Next, becoming the believable 7, establishing your credibility. We'll also look at how to frame it, right, in 7 ways to craft persuasive messages. Then the Irresistible 7 laws as the psychological drivers of agreement. After that, we'll tackle how to overcome the no with Omega's 7 secrets to reduce resistance. And finally, knowing their mind in 7 steps, truly understanding needs for ultimate persuasion.
Our goal is, to provide you with actionable insights and real-world examples in each of these areas. By the end of this deep dive, you should have a much clearer and more nuanced understanding of how to influence others effectively, both professionally and, personally.
All right, let's jump straight into our first area, mastering the magnetic 7 seconds. The fundamental idea here is that those very first few moments, they carry an incredible amount of weight.
Oh, absolutely.
You've got this tiny window to create a positive initial